Welcome back. I'm Tedward, and today, thanks to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, we're driving this 1971 Alfa Romeo 1750 GT Veloce, or GTV. This is very similar to the car we featured earlier this summer with my friend's gorgeous blue GTV 2000. However, this is a 1750, but actually it's a 1779cc with fuel injection because this is a US market car. The Euro market cars got carburetors, the US market cars got fuel injection. And that means it's got about 120 horsepower, but unlike its 7,000 RPM predecessor, the Giulia Sprint GT, the increased displacement and some changes made this lower red line at 6,000 RPM, but makes 120 horsepower. And this is what's really fun, is to compare and contrast similar Alfas. We've driven lots of Alfas on the channel, and I'm really excited to see what this is like in comparison to my friend's carburetor Euro spec GTV 2000. The style is impeccable. It's a small little car, and I always think that if you're not a Porsche person, maybe you're a little stranger, maybe you're a little more persnickety, you become an Alfa person. I think Alfa people are wonderful because they know so much more about these cars than I could ever dream of. I'm doing my best, and I'm sure you'll comment below. But what I can comment on is its beauty. This Bertone design is absolutely timeless. And it's funny because when you see other cars like a Berlina or something, this front end sometimes looks a little stodgy. And in this, it just, certain shapes, it almost has a little Iso Grifo in there. It looks so menacing and racy. But what also you'll notice down there is, I believe the lowest part of the front end is the oil pan. I do think my hypothesis is there's a reason for that. There's fins for cooling. So I think what they did was they wanted that in the airstream to cool that oil pan. It does mean that you've got to be pretty cautious over those speed bumps. What's great is that look how wide this track is relative to the body. Those tires stick out just a little bit. It looks gorgeous. You've got these cool little windshield wipers in here. And probably my favorite door handles in the game. Ignore my smudges. I'm doing my best. But it's I think a very dark blue. It may look black on camera, but inside, obviously, this car has been lovingly cared for and lightly, maybe majorly restored. These seats look brand new, but it's cool because it's got this sort of basket weave style here on the vinyl, and then you've got the Nardi wheel. But let's get under the hood because I think it's always fun to check under these Alfa hoods. Of course, it lifts this way. And then there you go. You've got a twin cam 4-cylinder that really puts in some work. And it's very hot, so what I'm not going to do is actually hold that up right there with the prop because I don't want to touch it. The 1750 Iniezione Sistema Alfa Romeo. I'm not going to do any more Italian for you today because that's already plenty terrible. But I also want to show you the boot because one of the things that's so cool about these cars is this is the boot release. And I was just in a Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale. They still use like the same exact lever, which is so funny how the Italians just like retain certain aspects of their cars over the years, even though they're different cars. Tons of space for stuff and tools and maybe a spare, and you may need tools because, you know, Alfas can be a little persnickety. From the rear, let's close this up so you get the full effect. Look at this tight little Hank Hill butt. It just comes together. It's so good. And that's relevant now, again, because Hulu just released a new season of King of the Hill. Not sponsored, but wouldn't that be cool if they were paying me for that? This single exit exhaust is so charming. It juts out to the driver's side. And these chrome bumpers are pretty darn handsome, despite the fact that they have these guys. You know, that's okay. I'll take an impact bumper over a non-impact bumper if it means somebody can tap me in a mall parking lot. The wheels are phenomenal, and we're so grateful that now we have companies like Alfaholics who will come in. They can do all kinds of great modifications for these cars. They can make them faster. They can make them handle better. They can make them brake better. They can make them sound better with different exhausts and intakes and all kinds of cool stuff. So the Alfa world is crazy, limitless, and everybody's is pretty unique. We're on Pirelli P4s, which is always lovely, and it's a 185 section tire on a 14-inch wheel, 4-lug, of course. The rear passengers actually get some reasonable space. I mean, not a lot, but it's more than I've seen in some passenger cars. Also, what I like is that these guys pop out, these guys pop out, and it's just such a charming and easy to use vehicle. So let's get a plate on it and take it out for a drive because I'm jonesing for a little cruise today. To get it started, we've got our key and ignition down here. Good neutral. And I swear, I'm not cheating. It's been starting like this all day. It's like unbelievable. And maybe it's lulling me into a false sense of security, but dare I say this Alfa is reliable? Man, I'll knock on vinyl. Ooh, just hit my funny bone. That was weird. All right, maybe the bad luck's entering now. We have some semblance of safety with the shoulder belt. We like that. And up front, we've got our tachometer with a vague but visible red line at about 6,000 RPM. We like that, nice and front and center. We've got our speedo down here. We've got fuel and water temperature, and buried in there in the tach is our oil pressure. The shifter placement is ideal as a driver's car. It's right next to the steering wheel. And these always look a little goofy, kind of protruding from the dashboard, but once you're using them, they just make so much sense ergonomically. I love a white GX. I might be biased. Slow car fast is overused, but never underappreciated, and this really embodies that. It's only got about 120 horsepower. It does what it needs to do just because it's not a very heavy car. but you'll certainly not be finding yourself speeding unless you're genuinely trying. There's no accidental speed in this car. The gearbox is precise, it's direct, it's tactile, I can feel everything that's going on, but it rewards a small bit of patience, especially on that 1-2. But every gear is direct and a positive engagement. It's not sloppy at all. There's very little play in this shifter, and I feel like there's some car companies today that could learn a thing or two from 1970s Alfa Romeo. But not forget about 1950s Alfa Romeo. One of my favorite cars of all time. It is a Giulietta Sprint Veloce from 1955-1956 time frame. The one I drove was a 56, and it changed my opinion of the car company completely. I've always known Alfas as, 80s and 90s spiders that were on flatbeds or sitting in front of local garages for years on end, and just reliability nightmares. They certainly had their Italian charm, but they weren't for me. Then I started driving cars like this and earlier and started realizing where Alfa came from, and their history, their pedigree is the real deal. Not to mention the fact that their cars in the 1950s drove, in my opinion, oftentimes easier and more modern feeling than Ferraris of the time. There's no power steering, but it's completely unnecessary because once you're moving, it's very light. In fact, it's really light even at low speeds. It's not a big car, and it doesn't feel like there's a whole bunch of weight over that front end. This is a cheat code if it's your first vintage car experience, because everything is easy. Like, if I were teaching someone how to drive, or how to drive a manual transmission especially, this might be my choice of car. It is so easy to understand what's going on at all times. And that's, to me, what makes a good weekender vintage car, is getting out of the numb space of the modern daily and getting into the tactile, reactive, and sonorous experience of a vintage classic. Now, the 1750 doesn't exactly have the same excitable sound as a carbureted 2-liter, but I'm not complaining. It's actually very refined. So maybe you live in an area where it's not insane for you to like daily drive this. This would be a really good daily driver. And I'm not just saying that as like, I'd daily anything. Like, I wouldn't anymore. Like, now I'm at a point where I start to ask the question, does it have cooled seats? Obviously not. But this is that easy. And look at this greenhouse. I can see everything out of this car, despite the fact that I don't even have that mirror. But I don't need it because I can look over the shoulder and get a full view of the world. People always think that having a cool classic car is going to get them girls, but the reality is it usually gets them guys, which, in my case, not so bad. But it's usually just like old guys who are asking about, no offense to old guys, you guys are great. You're great. But, it's usually just like old dudes with families who are asking about a vintage car. And this car is like one of the few that gets attention from women. I've had women come up and ask me about this car. What is that? I like it. And it's like very approachable. It's handsome. It's sporty. And it makes them want to know more. So maybe Alfa Romeo is the one car that actually attracts women. Because usually when I'm in a Ferrari or a Porsche or a Jag or anything else, maybe Jags, usually people, it's just dudes. Just attracting flocks of dudes. All right, let's see what this is like with the windows up. I want to know what this sounds like. And it's kind of nice because I can, is that a plaid? Not that I care that much about a Tesla Model S, but. And how cool are these? You can open this little guy with this little, I'm gonna call it a scroll wheel. A scrolly wheel, that's insane. Okay, well that's the coolest thing ever. I do like that. I would like to operate that very, very much. Yes, please. Despite its small stature, it has a lot of confidence and speed on the highways. I know we're not going very fast, but it tracks nice and straight. It feels composed. Feels like I can toss it around just a little bit, maybe. Oh, and the brakes are very well balanced to the car, which is really helpful. But, you know, I don't think it needs a lot for brakes just because it doesn't weigh much. So it seems to do a lot with the little in that regard. Can still track down modern traffic with ease, despite not having a whole lot of power. So I think that's going to wrap me up on this Alfa Romeo 1750 GTV. I think these are fantastic. This is so cool, and it's like a nice alternative to the Porsche lifestyle. It's also a great way to enter the Italian classic car lifestyle without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ferraris are very expensive. And hey, Jerry G, all right. I don't know what that is. I think Alfas are still a little bit of the unsung heroes in the classic car market right now. And they drive well, they handle well, they're stylish as heck. You've got to have a guy if you're not the guy yourself. And I think that might be the one thing that's a little tricky about it, because everyone's got a Porsche guy. If you live in Southern California, you can't swing a cat without hitting an air-cooled Porsche shop. It's just the way it goes. You've got your choice. Whereas with these, you might have to be a little more discerning and clever about how you get them serviced. But I highly recommend these. I think they're a blast. Some are more sonorous and ridiculous than others, and you get to kind of choose your own adventure financially and performance-wise. This one, to me, is like the Lusso version. It's comfortable, it's chill, it's a great cruiser. You can chuck it into a corner here and there. My friend's GTV 2000 feels more like the Superleggera version. It feels a little lighter, a little faster, a little louder, a little more raw, and that's great too. They all have their place, and I sincerely hope that if you haven't already experienced the cult of Alfa Romeo, you get to do that. And I don't mean new Alfas. New Alfas, not a bad thing, but especially old Alfas. So thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I will see you in the next one. I've never felt a car want to cancel my blinker faster than this GTV.